Imagine this: you're holding a handful of old, dirty Washington quarters coins most people would toss into a jar without a second thought. What if I told you that some of those grimy little coins, hidden mint errors, rare dates, double dies, these are the kinds of treasures people find in pocket change? One of the most unbelievably rare 1967 Washington quarter dollar. Imagine this. You're digging through an old jar of coins, maybe in your garage, maybe in a kitchen drawer, and suddenly one single quarter catches the light just a little differently. It looks ordinary at first, but something about it feels off. You look closer, and that's when the heart-stopping moment hits you. Could this be a coin struck during one of the most chaotic and historically important moments in U.S. mint history? The story of the 1967 Washington quarter dollar begins right in the middle of the great coin shortage crisis of the 1960s. People were hoarding silver coins, the mint was struggling to keep up with demand, and millions of quarters were being rushed into circulation as fast as possible. But here's the twist: because of the extreme pressure and speed, the mint suspended proof sets and mint marks from 1965 to 1967. That means there were no D or S mint marks. Every quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Let's start with one of the most exciting, the off-center strike error. Imagine a quarter where only half the design is visible, the portrait is shifted to the side, and the rest of the coin is a blank, smooth, silver-colored area. These errors happen when the coin blank isn't perfectly centered between the dies during striking. A slight off-center error, maybe 5% or 10%, might be worth £1,000 to £2,000 or £3,000. But a dramatic off-center mistake of 50% or more, that's where we're talking thousands of dollars. And if the date 1967 is fully visible on one side, that's when collectors start throwing serious money. The rarer the shift, the bigger the price. The double die error is one of the most famous and expensive types of mistakes in coin history. It happens when the die itself, the metal piece that stamps the design, gets misaligned during hubbing. When that flawed die strikes coins, every single coin shows double details. And in 1967, because of the minting pressure, several dramatic double dies were created. Some show doubling in the motto, some show doubling in the word liberty. The rarest of all show doubling on the reverse, especially on the eagle's wings, and the United States of America lettering point. One of the most shocking error types for 1967 is the wrong planchet strike. This is when a 1967 Washington quarter dollar is accidentally struck on the wrong metal blank. For example, some 1967 quarters have been found struck on nickel planchets, dime planchets, and even foreign coin planchets supplied by mistake. These wrong planchet errors can be unbelievably valuable. A quarter struck on a dime planchet might be worth £500 to £2,000. A quarter struck on a thicker, heavier foreign blank? That could be £5,000, £10,000, or more. And if one ever appears struck on a leftover silver planchet from the pre-1965 era, which collectors still believe might exist, its value could instantly skyrocket into 6- or 7-figure territory. But the most shocking error of all would be a double-dated mule error. A mule occurs when the wrong dies are paired together, such as a 1967 Washington quarter dollar obverse paired with another denomination's reverse. The U.S. Mint is notorious for hiding mule errors when they happen. But if a single verified 1967 mule quarter ever appears, collectors already estimate its value at £50,000 to £75,000, or even over £1 million depending on condition. Why so high? Because mule errors are the holy grail. They occur only when the mint makes catastrophic mistakes, which they always try to destroy before release. But during the rushed production of 1967, anything was possible. All of these errors, off centers, double dies, wrong planchets, mules, clips, die breaks, are already worth huge money. But the cleanest, highest grade examples are where the real gold lies. Because of the mint's chaotic production, finding a 1967 Washington quarter dollar in pristine condition is extremely hard. And when collectors do find one, especially with an error, values explode quickly. These coins are graded on a scale up to 70. Anything above MS65 is considered high grade. But if you ever find a rare error in MS66 or MS67, you're looking at thousands. And if anyone ever discovers an ultra-rare error in MS68 or higher, it could easily break records. The 1966 error Washington quarter dollar, one of the most mysterious, rarest, and most valuable modern quarters ever minted in the United States. Imagine holding a coin that millions of Americans once used casually every day, flipping it into vending machines, dropping it into pockets, letting it roll across counters without a second thought. Now imagine that same ordinary-looking coin turning out to be worth not just a few dollars, because 1966 was not a normal year at the U.S. Mint. It was a year of confusion, a year of transition, a year when mistakes were more likely to happen than at almost any other time in American coinage. And those mistakes, the rare errors secretly struck during this chaotic period, created treasures that today collectors hunt for like buried gold. The United States Mint had just removed silver from its coinage in 1965. The country was in the middle of a coin shortage. The mint was operating around the clock, pumping out coins at full speed. One of the most shocking and valuable errors is the struck on a silver planchet. Even though silver was removed from quarters after 1964, leftover silver planchets still existed inside the mint. And during the high-pressure production of 1966, a few slipped back into the machinery and were struck with the 1966 design. These coins look different. They feel different. They weigh different. And they are worth life-changing money. There is also the wrong planchet where the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. A famous example is a 1966 quarter struck on a dime planchet. These coins look almost miniature, smaller, thinner, part of the design missing, and instantly eye-catching. These can fetch $2,000 to $5,000 to even more dramatic is a 1966 quarter struck on a foreign planchet. The U.S. Mint produced coins for several other countries in the 1960s, meaning foreign blanks were inside the building at the same time. When a 1966 quarter was accidentally struck on a foreign blank, the result was a rare, exotic error that can reach $10,000 to $20,000, or even more depending on the metal and size of the planchet. Now let's talk about the double strikes, the errors that truly shock collectors. A double-struck 1966 quarter can show two full impressions, overlapping portraits, shifted lettering, or rotated reverses. Dramatic examples are breathtaking and worth $5,000 to $15,000, with the most intense double strikes pushing or more. The most fascinating group of errors, and perhaps the most valuable long-term, are the transitional errors. When the mint changed metals from silver to clad composition, leftover silver planchets were still mixed in. And some experts believe that a small number of 1,966 quarters might have been struck on transitional planchets during this confusion. Transitional errors can reach values from $25,000 to $75,000, and potentially more depending on the exact metal composition and provenance. The 1965 error Washington quarter dollar, one of the most shocking, most valuable, and most unpredictable coins ever released by the United States Mint. Imagine picking up an old quarter, a coin you've seen thousands of times, a coin that seems simple, ordinary, nothing special at all. But then the light hits it, something looks different. The weight, the color, the edge. Something is off, and that tiny detail could be the difference between a 25-cent coin and a jaw-dropping treasure, because this coin is not supposed to exist in its rarest forms. The 1965 year marks a major shift in U.S. coinage history. Before 1965, Washington quarters were made of 90% silver. But starting in 1965, the mint removed silver entirely and switched to the modern clad composition. The country was facing a severe coin shortage, silver prices were rising, and the government needed a cheaper metal mix. So 1965 quarters should all be copper-nickel. The most famous of all is the 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet. You can spot this rare error by the weight. A clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver planchet weighs 6.25 grams. That difference might sound small, but it's everything. If you find a 1965 quarter that feels slightly heavier, especially if it has a bright silver tone with no copper visible on the edge, you might be holding a life-changing fortune. One certified silver 1965 quarter sold for around another reached nearly, and an exceptional mint state example shattered expectations with estimates pushing into $50,000 to $100,000. And the rarest of the rare, those with flawless surfaces, crisp strikes, and official authentication, could climb even higher. Some experts say a perfect specimen would be worth $250,000 or more, and it's not impossible that a one-of-a-kind silver 1965 quarter in museum-quality condition could hit $1 million. There's also the wrong planchet error, where a 1965 quarter was struck on a blank mint for another coin entirely. One of the rarest examples is a 1965 quarter struck on a dime planchet. These pieces look tiny, incomplete, and unusual, missing parts of the design, edges cut off, and everything appearing smaller than normal. These errors can reach $2,000 to $5,000 depending on condition. Even more rare is the quarter struck on a foreign coin planchet, because the U.S. Mint produced blanks from multiple countries in the 1960s. One of these exotic 1965 errors sold for over $10,000, and others have been privately valued much higher when certified and matched to specific foreign planchets. Then we have off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned under the press. The more dramatic the shift, the higher the value. A 10% off-center might sell for, but a 40 to 60% off-center example can fetch $1,500 to $3,000. Rare full off-center pieces with the dates still visible are extremely valuable, often crossing $5,000 at auction. Another goldmine is the broadstrike error, where the retaining collar fails and the coin expands outward with a flattened, stretched look. These are prized by collectors because they show the full design without being cut off. A clean 1965 broadstrike can bring $500 to $1,500, and dramatic wide examples can hit $2, $500. And what about the transitional errors? These are some of the most fascinating mint mistakes of all. A transitional error is created when the mint changes metal compositions or designs, but accidentally uses leftover material or dies from the previous year. Because 1965 was the first year of the clad composition, transitional errors are extremely important and extremely valuable. A transitional 1965 quarter can easily climb into five-figure territory, especially if the strike quality is exceptional.